I found the photo tucked inside a used copy of Forgotten Local Legends I picked up at a charity shop. It was small, maybe 3 by 5 inches, and faded. The edges were soft, worn. It showed a house, or part of one. It was old, that much was clear. Overgrown. Vines climbed the walls, obscuring windows. There was something about it, a quiet strangeness. On the back, in faint, looping script, was a date, July 98. No other marks. I was procrastinating. My own work sat open on my laptop, untouched. The photo felt like an invitation to a different kind of task. I picked up my phone, then decided the laptop screen would be better. I opened images.google.com. I clicked the camera icon. Upload an image. I took a quick, careful photo of the old print with my phone, then transferred it to my laptop. It was a bit blurry, the light wasn't perfect, but it was the best I could do without a scanner. I uploaded the file. The search results loaded. They were generic. Old abandoned house, vintage architecture, overgrown building. A few stock photos of ivy-covered walls. Nothing specific. This wasn't going to be easy. I looked at the photo again. What was unique about it? The shape of the roofline, perhaps. The way the vines grew, almost like a pattern. I opened an image editor, just a basic one. Cropped the photo tightly around the house itself, removing the blurry edges of the original print. Increased the contrast slightly, sharpened it a touch. It still looked old, but the details were a little clearer. I went back to images.google.com. Uploaded the new, cropped version. This time, the results were different. Still many generic images, but further down, a few more specific ones. One result caught my eye. It was a small, personal blog post from 2007. The title was Oakhaven's Oddities, The Whispering House. Oakhaven. I'd never heard of it. I clicked the link. The blog post was short, written by someone named Local Historian 87. It talked about a local legend, a house on the outskirts of Oakhaven that was said to whisper secrets. It included a photo. It was the same house. The angle was slightly different, the photo was in color, but it was definitely the same structure. The blog post mentioned the house had been abandoned since the late 90s after a local incident. No details. Local incident. That sounded ominous. I went back to Google, not images.google.com this time, but the regular search. The Whispering House Oakhaven. The results were a mix. More blog posts, some local tourism sites mentioning the legend, and then, a few links to digitized newspaper archives. I clicked on one from the Oakhaven Gazette, dated August 1998. The headline read, Clara Vance still missing, police suspect foul play. Clara Vance. Missing. August 1998. My photo was dated July 98. This was getting interesting. The article detailed the disappearance of a young woman, Clara Vance, from her home in Oakhaven. Her home was described as a secluded property on the edge of town, known locally as the Whispering House. She was an artist, a photographer, somewhat reclusive. The police had found no signs of forced entry, no struggle. Just gone. The case had gone cold. I felt a chill. This wasn't just a random old house. This was a place connected to a mystery. And I had a photo from just before she vanished. I remembered something then, something vague from my childhood. My grandmother, who passed away years ago, used to tell me stories. Not bedtime stories, but just rambling tales when she was in a reflective mood. She'd talk about a Clara and a house that whispered. I'd always dismissed them as her imagination, or perhaps misremembered local gossip from her youth. She grew up in a different part of the state, but not that far. I never thought it could be real. This was a strange turn. My grandmother, Clara Vance, a missing person, and a photo I found in a used book. I searched for Clara Vance Oakhaven disappearance. More articles popped up. They all repeated the same facts: artist, reclusive, vanished without a trace. No body, no suspects, no leads. The case was officially unsolved. One of the search results was a link to an old forum, Oakhaven Local History Buffs. The thread was from 2012, titled, Remembering Clara Vance. People were discussing the case, sharing theories. Most were speculative, some leaning towards the supernatural given the house's reputation. One user, Old-Timer Gable, mentioned that his mother, Mrs. Gable, retired local historian, had known Clara and might have some of her old photographs or notes. He suggested contacting her if anyone was serious about the history. He even provided a general area of town where she lived. This felt like a real lead, not just an online rabbit hole. I looked up Oakhaven on a map. It was about a 3-hour drive. I had a day off tomorrow. My work could wait. This felt more important. The next morning, I drove to Oakhaven. It was a small town, quiet. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone. I found the general area Old-Timer Gable had mentioned. It took a bit of asking around, but eventually, an elderly woman at the local diner pointed me to Mrs. Gable's house. Mrs. Gable was an old woman, sharp-eyed. She was initially wary of a stranger asking about a decades-old cold case. I showed her the photo I'd found. Her eyes widened slightly. "That's Clara's house," she said, her voice soft. "And that's one of her photos." "You knew her?" I asked. "Yes. She was a lovely girl, a bit quiet. Very artistic. Always with her camera." Mrs. Gable sighed. Her disappearance was a tragedy for this town. Everyone had their theories. I told her about finding the photo, about my grandmother's vague stories. Mrs. Gable listened, her expression thoughtful. "Clara was working on a project before she left," Mrs. Gable said. She called it the Lost Lens. She was fascinated by the idea of leaving her art for others to find, to create a connection across time. She led me to a dusty old chest in her living room. Inside, among other local historical documents, was a small, leather-bound photo album. "Clara left this with me a few weeks before she vanished," Mrs. Gable explained. "Said it was part of her legacy, whatever that meant." She opened the album. Inside were dozens of photographs, all taken by Clara. Landscapes, portraits of local people, abstract shots of light and shadow. And then, there it was. A photo of the Whispering House. It was the same image as mine, but clearer, sharper, a professional print. It was the original. "This is the one I found," I said, pointing. "Yes," Mrs. Gable confirmed. She was very proud of that shot. Said it captured the house's true spirit. But why was my copy in a used book? And why was it so faded? It wasn't a print from this album. I thanked Mrs. Gable, promising to keep her updated if I found anything. I drove back home, my mind racing. The Lost Lens project. That was the key. Back at my laptop, I went straight to images.google.com again. I uploaded the high-resolution image of the Whispering House that Mrs. Gable had allowed me to photograph from Clara's album. This time, the results were much better. The top result was a link to a small, obscure online art gallery from 2005. Clara Vance, a retrospective. It was clearly put together by a relative, perhaps, or a friend who wanted to honor her work. The gallery showcased many of the photos I'd seen in Mrs. Gable's album. And there, under the Whispering House photo, was a caption, part of the Lost Lens series. Last known location of this particular lens drop was a copy of Forgotten Local Legends left at Oakhaven Public Library, July 1998. My book. Forgotten Local Legends. The same title. The same month. The photo I found was one of Clara's lens drops. She hadn't just disappeared, she had left a trail of art. I felt a surge of excitement, then a pang of sadness. This wasn't a crime to solve, but an artistic statement to understand. I searched for Clara Vance Lost Lens Project. This led me to an even older corner of the internet, a photography forum from the late 90s, archived but still accessible. Clara Vance had posted there under the username Lens Wanderer. Her posts detailed her Lost Lens project. She described it as an experiment in connection and discovery. She would take unique photographs, print them, and then leave them in specific, meaningful locations inside books, tucked into park benches, hidden in old mailboxes. Each photo was a lens drop, a small piece of her art, meant to be found by chance. She hoped that whoever found them would feel a connection, perhaps even share their own story, continuing the chain. She wanted her art to live beyond her, to travel, to be discovered. She wrote about wanting to disappear into her art, to let her work speak for her. That disappearance wasn't a tragedy in the way the town thought. It was an artistic act. She hadn't been murdered or abducted. She had simply moved on, leaving her art as her legacy, her way of connecting with the world without being physically present. The town, steeped in its legends, had misinterpreted her reclusive nature and her artistic departure. But where did she go? Did she continue her project? I searched for Lens Wanderer photography, artist leaving photos in public places. It was a long shot. Many artists do similar things. But I was looking for a specific kind of resonance. After scrolling through pages of unrelated results, I found something. A small, independent online art magazine, Ephemeral Art Quarterly, from 2020. An article titled, The Anonymous Wanderer, Art Beyond the Gallery. The article profiled an anonymous artist known only as The Wanderer, who created installations involving found objects and photographs left in public spaces. The description of their work was eerily similar to Clara's lens drops. The article mentioned that The Wanderer's early work, dating back to the late 90s, involved leaving small, unique photographs in books and other unexpected places. It also stated that The Wanderer had once lived in a small, forgotten town, a place of quiet legends. There was no name, no definitive proof. But the connection was undeniable. The timeline, the method, the philosophy. Clara Vance had become The Wanderer. She had achieved her goal of disappearing into her art, of letting her work speak for her, anonymously connecting with people across time and space. I closed my laptop. The screen went dark. The mystery was solved, not with a definitive answer about Clara's current address, but with a profound understanding of her artistic journey. She wasn't a victim, she was an artist who had chosen a unique path. My grandmother's stories, those vague tales of Clara and that whispering house, weren't just old woman's ramblings. They were echoes of a real, vibrant artistic spirit that had touched her life, however indirectly. I looked at the faded photo again, the one I'd found in the book. It wasn't just a picture of an old house anymore. It was an invitation. A message from the past, a piece of a larger, ongoing artistic conversation. I thought about my own work, the procrastination. I felt a shift. I wasn't just looking for answers anymore. I was part of a story. I decided I would continue the lens drop project in my own way. I would take a unique photo, print it, and leave it in a book, somewhere for someone else to find. A new link in the chain. The arguments were closed. The photo had led me on a journey, and now, it was time to start my own.